So today's video is going to be about my top 5 must-have makeup brushes. I love makeup brushes. I have a lot of them, and it was really difficult to narrow it down to these 5, but I think with these 5 brushes, I could honestly do my entire face with just these alone. I do have one face brush that I really, really love. Sorry if you hear the clicky noise. This is like getting very ASMR-y. I don't know if you guys even understand that reference, but Leo would think it's funny. Anyway, so I have the Real Techniques blush brush. I like this brush just because it is so great for multiple purposes. I apply my liquid foundation with my hands just because I find that I get the best, most natural finish with my hands, and plus I don't waste product by having a brush soak it all up. But I use this for all of the powder products that I use on my face. I use this to set my foundation with a powder. I use this to add contour or bronzer, sometimes both if I'm feeling really froggy. And I also use it to apply blush, and every now and then I'll also use it to highlight just because it doesn't quite taper, but it's, you know, it's got a pointed enough edge where I can like lightly dust it across the tops of my cheekbones and it won't be too like intense. And it is like, you know, very fluffy and soft. And I love the Real Techniques brushes. I love the way they're packaged. I love that it's not made of wood, so if it gets wet, there's no like expanding or compressing at all, so you don't have to worry about, you know, issues with your brush ferrule. I just love these brushes, and I know they're definitely a cult favorite here on YouTube, just kind of all across the board, but I think out of all of the Real Techniques brushes, this one is my favorite. So the next brush I want to mention is the Inglot 6SS blending brush. I love using this to apply highlight. This brush is really fluffy, so it makes for a really good blending brush, but it also picks up pigments really well. If you want something a little bit cheaper, I believe the Sigma E40 is a pretty close duplicate. I want to say that the Sigma one has a little bit more density to it, but they're virtually the same brush. I use them for essentially the same thing and just switch on and off depending on what colors I'm using. They work the exact same way. It just kind of depends on your brand preference or which one is more easily available to you. For a little bit more of a refined blending brush, I really love the MAC 217. I know this is again another one of those brushes that everyone loves. This is a little bit more on the pricey side, so you can get the Sigma E25. Again, they're essentially the same brush. The MAC 217 is a little bit stiffer. I think it comes a little bit more to a point, and the Sigma brushes tends to kind of fray out a little bit more, but I use them interchangeably and don't really have any problems. So I would say either one of these would be great. I do think I somewhat prefer the MAC 217 because it's not quite as flimsy. I have a little bit more control and it is just a smidge softer. But again, if you are looking to kind of save money, I would say the Sigma E25 is an excellent choice. I feel like I could do all of my eyeshadow with just a blending brush. However, I do like to have a really nice paddle brush that grips on pigments and just really pack on color on my eyelids. If that's the kind of look I'm going for, especially when I'm doing like nighttime looks, I like to have a nice paddle brush to work with. For that, I really do love the MAC 239. Mine is super faded because I've used it so much, but this is the best paddle brush I've ever tried, and I've tried so many. This is really awesome. Like the 217, it is a little bit on the stiffer side. It is a soft brush, however, I love how well it grips to pigments and transfers them onto my eyes. I find that with a lot of other brushes, they either have a hard time picking up pigments or they pick up a ton of pigment but then soak it all up, whereas I feel like this one really does apply it to your eyelids and just, it doesn't really waste as much product. It does get dirty really quickly because it's a white brush, but I find that it's the easiest to work with and the most forgiving. Because it's so flat, it does come to like a nice little tip there, so you can use it to like blend or apply color to your lower lash line. It's a lot more of a rigid, stiff brush, so I have control over where it's going and it doesn't kind of flake everywhere like it would with a pencil brush. And I can always just go back with the same brush and blend it out if I really need to. So I just think this is an amazing paddle brush. I need to get more of these just because once it gets dirty, I can only really use the color that's on it. I don't like having to wash it all the time, so it kind of traps me into wearing the same eye look because I want to use this brush over again. So really awesome brush. It is again on the pricier side. I don't really have a dupe for it just because I searched long and hard for a duplicate. It's amazing. I'm sure there are some similar dupes out there and I have tried a lot of them, but honestly, in my opinion, nothing really compares to the MAC 239. My last brush is one that I use for eyeliner primarily, and that is from BH Cosmetics. And I feel silly mentioning this because this came in one of those kits. I'll link to the kit down below just because it really is a nice kit. But this was my favorite brush out of the entire one. This is just a very stiff, flat liner brush. And it's not super thin, but I almost kind of like that. I use this a ton with my gel liner to apply it to my lash line, and honestly even more frequently I use this for my brows. I've been taking this with a brown gel liner and then running it in the outer edges of my brows, which is what I did today, and I find that it looks amazing. It's like, it makes it look like I used, you know, the Anastasia brow pomade thing, and like I used a really expensive brush or whatever, but it's really just this cheapy little brush that I got in like a brush kit for like 20 something bucks. So it's a really awesome brush. The whole kit really is worth the money. I do really want to find like a flatter, skinnier version of this, but I think for the time being, this really does serve all of my personal liner preferences. It's good stuff. I hope today's video was interesting or helpful to you in some way. And if you aren't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos. And if you aren't quite sick of me yet, I will be linking to some other videos that I've posted recently at the end of this video, so be sure to check that out. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments or send me a message, and I will see you later. Bye!